Hey everybody, welcome back. I know it's been some time since the last video, but we're back. And today it's going to be a Star Wars video. We're going to be talking about the Darksaber. We're going to talk about its history a bit and maybe where we shall see it in Mandalorian Season 2. We'll also talk about other Darksabers that we've seen in some of the other lore. So let's get to it. What we learned in Star Wars Rebels and Clone Wars was that the Darksaber is 1,000 years old. And the first Mandalorian that became a Jedi Knight, Ter Vizsla, created the lightsaber. It's very different than the traditional lightsaber. It has a flat blade, and the core is dark versus being white, and then the outside is white. After Ter Vizsla had passed, the lightsaber was kept in the Jedi Temple on Coruscant, and eventually, sometime later, members of House Vizsla came in and stole the blade back. We don't know much about Ter Vizsla. We just know that he was a very much revered and respected figure on Mandalore, and he did become one of its rulers at one point, so there was a Jedi Mandalorian ruling Mandalore. We know Mandalorians have a lot of beef with the Jedi because of the Jedi Mandalorian Wars, which happened 3,000 years before Ter Vizsla even became a Jedi. That's Old Republic stuff, like old Republic stuff, which, by the way, I really hope one day we can see like a TV show adaptation or video game of that. I think that'd be very interesting. But anyways, Ter Vizsla was very much respected, and his legacy continued on with House Vizsla and the Darksaber. The Darksaber became a power and symbol for Mandalorians, and they always rallied behind the person who wielded it. In the Old Republic, though, there were multiple Darksabers with different outer colors. So the inner color was still black. You had your reds, your greens, your blues, your yellows, your purples, etc. When Disney bought Star Wars and everything, all the lore is all loosely tied and or not tied, depending on what section it's from. But the Old Republic is still loosely tied in. So the question I have is, will we see more Darksabers pop up throughout the galaxy? And if so, are all Darksabers made, crafted by Mandalorian blacksmiths? Maybe they know how to do something different. Does the Darksaber have Beskar in it? Is that what makes it black? Why does it look different? Why does it kind of act different? They mentioned in one of the Rebels episodes how it's much heavier than a regular lightsaber. I don't know, but I think it'd be very interesting for them to explore. Maybe they do it in Mandalorian Season 2. I think it'd be a very cool thing to see. That, all these Darksabers start slowly popping up. They're hidden throughout these temples. But yeah, they were all crafted by Mandalorians. That could be interesting. Like maybe Mandalorian blacksmiths in the Old Republic worked with the Jedi. Like this is before the wars or during the wars or whatnot. So I don't know, just something to think about. So after House Vizsla took the blade, they kept the Darksaber with them even throughout the days of the Clone Wars. Pre-Vizsla, this Joker had it, and he was the leader of Death Watch. He was also the governor of Concordia. Concordia Dawn is one of the moons of Mandalore. If you watched Clone Wars, you remember that he rebelled against Duchess Satine because she was a pacifist, and he thought that everyone should go back to their warrior ways. So he was the leader of Death Watch, and he had that, and so he was always challenging her rule. Supposedly, too, the information was given in one of the Clone Wars episodes that they were able to steal the lightsaber from the Jedi Temple because that was during the fall of the Old Republic. So it was during that chaos that they went and took it back. It'd be really cool one day to see that time period explored as well. So Pre-Vizsla had a whole thing with Maul, and they were like buddy-buddy, but then they kind of turned on one another, and then Maul killed Pre-Vizsla with the Darksaber and became the leader of Death Watch and sort of Mandalore, but he put in a puppet governor, and then he became the leader of the Pikes, and he made his own shadow collective of all the crime syndicates and brought them together. He was ruling all of them. And then we see in one episode that he tries to challenge Palpatine, but he loses and his brother dies, and we don't really know what happens from then, but Palpatine says, like, I have more plans for you. Well, in the comic series Maul, Son of Dathomir, we learned that he lost his blade after Palpatine beat him, and he was prisoned, but then he later escaped from prison by some of his followers, like Mandalorian followers, and they give him the Darksaber back. The reader finds out that it's all actually a part of Palpatine's plan. He wanted to weaken the Shadow Collective, and he wanted to try to bring Maul down at the right time. So we know in Rebels that he no longer controls the Shadow Collective. They've maybe been disbanded. Rebels is closer to A New Hope, though. But we see in Solo, a Star Wars story, that he is still the leader of some sort of Shadow Collective. So I wonder what happened in that time frame. We'll see. But I wonder what also is going to happen at the end of the Siege of Mandalore. Does he get bested? Does he go into hiding? And then he has to reform the Shadow Collective? I don't really know, but I'm sure we're going to see his fate between Solo and End of Clone Wars play out. Hopefully, too, then they give us a sneak peek and we see, how he ended up alone and crazy on that one planet when we found him in Star Wars Rebels. And I'll see if I can find it, but I believe at one point he did say that the blade is cursed, which is maybe why he doesn't wield it anymore. Because in Rebels, he just wields his red lightsaber, but he has the Darksaber. It was on Dathomir. Ezra found it. But maybe, he told Ezra not to touch it, either because it's cursed or, maybe it was a part of the ceremony. But he seemed kind of afraid of it. So maybe it is cursed. And with the way that anyone who holds it ends up dying, maybe the blade is haunted by its original owner. I think that'd be really interesting if they add that into the story. They can shine some background on it. So after Ezra and Sabine and Maul, that whole thing happened on Dathomir. Sabine took it, and then she wielded it for some time. They wanted her to lead Mandalore, and she was like, no, I'm not doing that. But she eventually gave it to her mother. Her mother kind of betrayed her and gave it to Gar Saxon, and then they kind of battle a bit, and then she beat him. But then Sabine was like, I don't want to be the ruler. I'll hold on to the Darksaber for now, but we're going to find an actual ruler for Mandalore. So eventually, she does find and gives it to Bo-Katan. Bo-Katan was Duchess Satine's sister. We saw her in Clone Wars. She shows up in Rebels for a little bit, and she ends up wielding the Darksaber and helps liberate Mandalore. Now, we don't know if Mandalore was truly liberated during the rebellion, because, we assume that they did. At the end of Mandalorian Season 1, we see Moff Gideon has the Darksaber, and he was an Imperial on Mandalore, and we know that. So the question is, did Bo-Katan lead and free Mandalore, but then a couple years later, Moff Gideon stole it? Maybe he killed her and she fell? We don't really know how he has the Darksaber, but if she did die, it would kind of add to the theory or the idea that the blade is cursed, and I think that could be kind of interesting. But yeah, so we know Moff Gideon currently has it. He's a former officer of the Empire. How did he get it? I really want them to show that, and I'm sure they will. So we know we're going to see Ahsoka in Mandalorian Season 2, but I also have a theory that we're going to see Sabine and maybe even Ezra in Mandalorian Season 2, because the way Rebels ends is Sabine and Ahsoka, they go off to go and find Ezra, right? And maybe they find Ezra, and then they show up in Mandalorian Season 2. Unless Mandalorian Season 2 takes place in between that time period and they just don't find Ezra. But we know the creators of Rebels have already said that Ezra is still alive. So I don't know. I think it could be very interesting, though. And I think it's definitely a possibility that we could see Sabine and Ezra in Mandalorian Season 2 along with Ahsoka because of their ties with the Darksaber and where we last saw them. Alright, that is it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. I actually just finished Rebels about a month ago, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. This show is incredible. I actually want to rewatch it because it's so good. So that is what inspired me to make this video, was just because of all the backstory we got on the Darksaber. And I just kind of want to talk about it because Star Wars is great and fun. So yeah, thanks for watching, everybody. I will see you guys for the next one.